Thank you, Madam President, for leading the council through this thoughtful budget cycle and for engaging us, especially the new members of the council, during this process, which at its heart has been all about equity. Determining the county's $5.8 billion operating budget has been an exercise in fiscal discipline, and it's also been an exercise in which we can put our dollars where our hearts are. I'm proud that members of this council have collaborated to make more services whole for some of our most vulnerable residents. And while going through my first budget cycle as a council member, I kept in mind the 1.1 million constituents who contribute to this budget and who depend on county services and programs. Unfortunately, in some parts of the county, access to these programs are limited and hindered because of transportation options. That's an equity issue. One of the leading indicators of social mobility is access to reliable transportation, and that's why one of my top priorities during this budget cycle was to ensure that young people have the expanded and free access to ride-on and Metro bus services. Every student should have the opportunity to succeed regardless of which school they attend or their household wealth. There's no reason a student should be walking in the cold or the rain because they couldn't afford bus fare. And there's no reason a student should ever miss a job or internship because they didn't have a reliable way of getting home. I fought with my council member support to expand the Kids Ride Free program to all hours to all Montgomery County youth under the age of 18. And I'm appreciative of the strong support by all of my colleagues. Expanding the Kids Ride Free program is the equitable thing to do, and it's the smart way for us to foster a culture of transit ridership and an environmental stewardship that will last throughout adulthood. In that same vein, I fought to restore bus services for our county's most heavily used bus routes. Bus routes 49, 54, 55, and 57. These routes serve many in our up-county who are less likely to own vehicles and already have few transit options. Earlier this week, a Montgomery College student who depends on the 55, 57, and 59 wrote all of us on the council asking to reverse these budget cuts. This student, Fernando, wrote, and I quote, "If there's a cut, it would mean I have to look for different methods of transportation, increase time to get different buses, and sleep less. Please do not allow that to happen to me and many other working class students that rely on those routes." Again, I want to thank my colleagues for supporting the restorations of these cuts, especially Councilmember Reamer, who has advocated for these bus services. I just wish that we could have restored funding for the other 3 bus routes that were cut during this budget cycle, but I'm hopeful that in the upcoming fiscal years, we'll be able to restore those routes as well. And as I said during our T&E work session, it's time for us to take a look at our bus routes as a whole and see if they need to be redrawn, given that there have been huge population shifts since they were last designed. Beyond equity, these initiatives have something else in common: environmental stewardship. I'm glad that we've, as a council, have supported the initiative to hire a consultant that can help us move the climate mobilization plan forward. I believe that this will help our county on a clear path towards fighting climate change. We are all experiencing the adverse effects of global warming, and to make the situation even worse, we know that environmental justice issues disproportionately impact vulnerable and poor communities. So funding for this climate change initiative will help ensure that we're doing our part here in Montgomery County so that this world is left brighter and better for everyone to come. And speaking of our future, earlier this week I was glad that we fully funded MCPS and Montgomery College, knowing that an investment in our county's young minds is an investment worth making. And as the council's lead on homelessness in vulnerable communities, I worked with my colleagues on the HHS committee as well as Councilmember Hucker to push for additional funding that is needed at Progress Place, one of our county's heavily used shelters, to ensure that the safety of clients, staff, and the community is at the forefront. And like my colleagues, I was moved by the passionate statements from advocates who represent those with developmental differences, and I'm glad that the restoration of funding for the DD service providers is included in this budget. And I commend the HHS Chair, Councilmember Albornoz, for leading those discussions, and I look forward to working with him and the work group that will follow to improve our processes and our nonprofit business models as well. And regarding the nonprofit sector, as a former nonprofit executive, I understand the increasing demands that we continue putting on our nonprofit sector and the work that they do. And I know that the 3% cost of living increase we're providing in our contracts is long overdue and necessary. And then finally, I want to thank Council Central staff for providing me and my team with the necessary information to analyze the county executive's proposals and to help us put forth sensible proposals of our own. And to my team, Valeria, Pete, Andrea, and David, thank you for bringing your passion, skills, and knowledge to my office and to all the residents of Montgomery County. There is more work to do. This budget is the first in our term. And as we move forward, I will continue making sure that our budget is fair and equitable to make sure that our county is a more fair and equitable one. But I do believe that this budget moves us forward, is fiscally sustainable, and puts vulnerable communities first. Thank you.